With tensions running high, with offers to involve ICE shootings in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities haven't had any rest. They're 6 years out from the George Floyd boot on the neck trauma, and it seems to be getting worse. In year 2020, the citizens of Minneapolis were yelling defund the police. Around the same time, the Somali community were robbing the taxpayers blind. The question is why such a heavy ICE presence in Minnesota? The answer is plain and simple. Operation Metro Surge. Some people may already heard about it. For others, this might be the first time getting tapped in. Operation Metro Surge is an intense ongoing U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. This action began in December 2025, primarily in the Twin City, Minneapolis, and St. Paul, expanding throughout Minnesota, described by officials as the largest ever immigration enforcement operation. It aims to apprehend and deport undocumented immigrants. So stay tuned and take notes before we try to figure out what the hell is happening in Minnesota. Bang and hit the like and subscribe button if you've never been to a Diddy party. You know who it is. It's your man and not your boy.
A call for compassion as the immigration crackdown continues. Some members of the immigrant community say Operation Metro Surge is crushing their businesses and costing them money. Now they're asking for your help.
Minnesota is best known as the land of 10,000 lakes, but no amount of water could put out what's burning in the Twin Cities. December 2025, the Twin Cities will be slapped with one of the biggest federal operations the U.S. ever seen, Operation Metro Surge. There's approximately 4 million people in Minnesota, St. Paul, and out of the 4 million people, 500,000 of them are undocumented or illegal. This might not be a staggering amount of people, so we have to ask ourselves, why is the biggest sting operation happening in one of the smallest migrant communities? And who are the ICE agents primarily targeting? If the ICE agents are primarily targeting African Somalians, is it safe to say protesters like Renee Good stood in solidarity with the African Somali community? Let me know in the comment section if you know why the protesters are protesting against ICE. Are they for the African Somalians? Or the protesters just don't want the federal agents running indiscriminately through their communities? But the questions left unanswered is why target the Twin Cities with such a massive operation.
Tonight, the legal status of some in Minnesota's Somali community is in question after President Trump announced last night he was terminating temporary protected status for Somali migrants in Minnesota due to fraudulent activity in the state.
Somali nationals were initially granted temporary protected status by the United States on September 16, 1991, due to severe civil war and humanitarian crisis. In March 2023, the status was renewed, including a significant extension and redesignation. Just 3 years later, on January 2026, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, announced the end of the TPS designated for Somalians, citing improved country conditions with protections originally set to run out through March 12, 2026. Why such abrupt stop? One thing America loves more than football and a cold drink on a summer day? You guessed it, is their guns, and not too far after that is their money. Feeding Our Future is a fraud scheme in the Twin Cities, involving dozens of individuals, mostly from the Somali community. The scheme began in 2020 during a pandemic, with major federal changes igniting in early 2022. The scandal describes as the largest COVID relief fraud involving over 250 million stolen funds meant for feeding the children. You see, America don't have a problem with Somalians, let alone immigrants. The governments will give you millions of dollars to feed your kids. But if you thought for a cotton picking minute Uncle Sam wouldn't come a knocking and checking receipts, you were wrong.
Repeating calls to go home.
And it's important to stand out here and show Minneapolis, show Minnesota, show the world that we don't welcome people like this in our city.
But for another,
these people are trying, they don't care who it is, as long as I'm not their side.
As time passed, Lang left City Hall, where the crowd followed, running and chanting down Minneapolis blocks, and halting outside Hotel Indigo, where the well-known activist appeared to run inside.
Now that we have this brief understanding of Operation Metro Surge and the importance of ridding the Twin City of this massive fraud empire, I'm still confused about if the citizens of the Twin Cities are for Somalians or against ICE. 2 white American citizens lost their life due to these ICE raids, Renee Good and Alex Petty. But I'm not sure if they're on the same team. We have a group of protesters blowing whistles to notify residents of ICE agents. Then we have another group of protesters yelling Islamic-phobic rhetoric, "Go home Muslim," while whistles are being blaring in the background. This reminds me of 2017, the American First rally, when a neo-Nazi gang called Vanguard America showed up to Laguna Beach, California in support of anti-immigration. The anti-immigration protesters were severely outnumbered, 20-1, due to the particular dress code from both parties, black and red. It was hard to differentiate the Nazis from the pro-immigration protesters, with all the white faces hiding behind black and red bandanas. From the outside looking in, you couldn't tell who was who.
The Department of Homeland Security says it's the largest operation in Minnesota's history, a surge of over 2,000 ICE agents deployed to the Twin Cities amid statewide child fraud allegations in the state, which has involved convictions of some residents of Somali descent.
Operation Metro Surge is the biggest thing to hit the Twin Cities since the Minnesota Timberwolves drafted Kevin Garnett in 1995. Just a few years before this would happen, the Somali community would be granted temporary protective status due to a civil war and extreme instability in their home country. The purpose of TPS, the temporary protective status, was allow Somalian nationals to live and work in the U.S. when conditions in Somalia were too dangerous to return. The termination of temporary protective status, TPS for Somalians, effective March 17, 2026, means approximately 7,000 Somalians nationals will lose legal authorization to live and work in the U.S. and face potential removal as the DHS deems conditions in Somalia have improved. Affected individuals must deport, adjust to other legal statuses, or risk deportation. Many Somalians who live in the Twin Cities have nothing to do with fraud or any illegal activities. They're here escaping harsh realities of their country due to the actions of a few bad Somalians in Minnesota. All Somalian nationwide who has temporary protected status will be deported effective March 17, 2026. Some of these Somalians are at risk of being separated from their families and, more importantly, unalived.
Oh, terrible, tragic civil war.
Somalia's civil war forced 3.8 million people to flee the country since 1991, according to refugee assistance agencies. Almost all of them expected it to be temporary.
The Twin City is a melting pot filled with raw emotion. They say after chaos there will be peace. Minneapolis haven't had any rest for 6 summers. Minneapolis is a relatively safe American city who opened their doors to the largest Somalian population in the United States, with over 87,000 residents that contribute significantly to the economy. Due to the major influx of Somalians in Minneapolis, we've seen an upspike in violent crime and fraud. When your state and local leaders don't step up, the federal government steps in, implementing strict strategies to rid Minneapolis from the extreme fraud dilemma. Operation Metro Surge hit the Twin Cities seamlessly overnight, deploying thousands of federal agents into the city. With this type of intimidating presence shown by our federal government, I feel that the residents of Minneapolis didn't appreciate the intrusiveness that the federal government is showing to the residents of the Twin City. This will cause residents to rebel in the form of protests, blowing whistles and blocking and hindering traffic, triggering a series of officer-involved shootings, taking the life of 2 American citizens, Renee Good and Alex Petty, leaving Sosa Salinas shot and recovering from a broken leg. The protesters will be divided into 2 indistinguishable groups, anti-ICE or pro. Renee Good and Alex Petty might have been protesting for 2 different reasons, but they share the same destination thanks to Operation Metro Surge. And to the view, my friends, you made it this far, click one of these videos that pop up on the screen. It may change your life.